Welcome to PENSDOWN. Here we talk journalism journeys. This is the platform where the newsmakers and the news writers become the news reporters and the news writers become the newsmakers. We turn the tables and bring the people who bring you the stories to come and tell us what they go through before you get to hear the stories. We put the CCTV camera behind the scenes and let you into the inner workings of what journalists go through. Today, we are traveling all the way to the Greenland of Nigeria, and we are touching base with a media communications expert and gender inclusion advocate. Her profile, complete profile, will be shown to you on the screen while we go through this conversation. I have been joined today on PENSDOWN by Osaruonamen Ibizugbe. I hope I got it right.
Yeah, you did a great job, Mr. Steven. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thanks for joining
Hi.
me on PENSDOWN.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
You did television reporting for a number of years.
Yes.
What brought you into journalism? Was it an accident or it was a divine arrangement?
Well, I think I'll go with the latter. I'll say it's the because right from a very young age, I've always fancied journalism. I've known on TV, dishing out the news, the cameras in front of you, the lightings and all of that. So I remember back then when I was young, in church, in school, every activity during graduations and every ceremony in school, I would always bring up the idea of having newscasting as one of the activities to present as teenagers and children and all of that. And I always headed that. I always looked for someone to join me, always acting, two persons, dishing out the news and all of that. So I've always had that passion to be on TV and all of that. And then I think after I finished secondary school, I got the opportunity to move to Abuja from my home state, which is Edo State, where I'm from originally. I came in to Abuja with my aunt. I needed to come help her with her family and all of that. And she is a renowned broadcaster who has been in broadcast for almost 30 years now. And so it was a great opportunity for me to come in, learn from her on the job and all of that. And then it fueled my passion to want to go into broadcasting. Well, it would interest you to know that I studied accounting, not media related. So I was still in school when I started interning as a media person. So I started in ITV, I think back then in 2015. I started as an intern. I was learning on the job because I already had a passion for it. And then I had an aunt who I lived with who was into it full time. So it was easy for me to just slide into it. And thanks to the uniqueness of journalism, it's easy for anyone from any field to just come in. And as long as you have a passion for it and you can write and all of that, you'll do well in it. So it was easy for me to just get into journalism. And it's been a great experience, I must say.
Will you say journalism pays? Does it pay?
Oh, well, yeah, I would be indifferent on this, but then again, I'm going to speak from the perspective of my own experience. Yeah, I've always wanted to study mass communication or theater arts. Those were the two courses I had in mind when I finished secondary school and was moving into the university and all. But my dad was of the idea, is it because your auntie is on TV? Is it because you want to be like her when you grow up? There are professional courses that you can study that would make you well, fetch you money in the future and all of that. Why journalism? Why mass communication? So I think for me, I would say I wouldn't say it pays, but then in the long run, it does pay. If yes, if you're on track and you are on the right track to actually building a career in journalism. I think it takes time, but then it does pay.
What stands out as the most challenging assignment for you during your active days as a reporter?
Okay, I think it was when I was posted to the National Assembly to start covering the Nigerian Senate, the almighty Red Chambers. I remember when I got the news from my director of news then, it came as a shock, yeah, because I was used to general beat coverage, market survey, vox pops, and any assignment here and there. Hey, you've been assigned to cover this assignment, you go there and you come back and all of that. And then the news came to me when the letter was handed to me to say you're going to be covering the almighty Senate. And I remember, I think, I don't know, I wouldn't say shivers, but then again, I think it kind of came as a shock. And I was like, oh, me, Senate? Where would I start from? How am I going to understand what goes on there? Because, yeah, I was in journalism, yes, but then I didn't have all of the knowledge about the whole workings, especially of like the executive, the three arms of government and what they are meant to do and all of that. I didn't have deep knowledge about all of those. So it was a bit challenging in the beginning. It was a bit tough in the beginning. When I'll go there, I would just sit at the press call, watch the proceedings and don't know what's going on. I'll ask questions here and there and all of that. So I think that would be it for me. That would be the most challenging.
You are now saddled with a lot of advocacy, gender advocacy. Well, do we say journalism has lost you, or you have only repackaged yourself for use in a different way to journalism?
Okay, yeah, I would go with the latter again. I wouldn't say journalism has lost me at all. Journalism is a passion. Journalism is not just a job. It's not something you just don't go to write. You write because you have a passion for it. Journalism is something that stems from the heart. Like, I'm sure you understand what I mean.
Yes.
But then if you ask me, I'll say this is me doing my work as a journalist from another angle of journalism, because I'm basically working in a sector where we are the force behind the media, basically. So we kind of notch the media in the right direction, in the area of society where they need to focus on and report on more. So I'm still in journalism. I'm just at a different angle at the moment where, yeah, I know broadcast is something I can still go back to or easily go back to if I want to do that. So I think it's important that journalists build knowledge or build capacity in different areas of the media. And I'm glad I'm in the advocacy sector at the moment. Yeah.
Social media, is it a challenge to journalism or an opportunity to journalists?
I'd say it's two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
It has its advantages. It has its disadvantages. That's everything. Yeah. It's just so sad that the era of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation kind of coming to like alter the good work that the journalists put out there to like inform the public and the society of major issues or important issues that they work on. I think it depends on how you use it. It depends on how you deploy social media in the work that you do as a journalist.
Social media has created richer bloggers in Africa than richer journalists. How did journalists miss out on this windfall? Were we sleeping?
I wouldn't say journalists were sleeping. I wouldn't say it's just so. It just happens that the public wants to hear. They want access, or they need access to information as quickly as possible, as soon as it happens. And it just so happens that the bloggers have been there, or they're all just on the other side, ready to dish out the news, whether the news are verified, whether they are misinforming the public or disinforming the public. They do not care, as long as they put the news out there as fast as possible. And I think that is what the general public wants to see or want to hear, or they want to get the news as soon as it happens. I think that is the advantage that the bloggers have over journalists. And that is why the issue of misinformation thrives, the issue of fake news and disinformation and all of that. So I wouldn't say journalists are missing out or they've slept on it. There are journalists who still deploy social media and they still make the best out of it. It's just so sad that they are not being spotlighted as much as the bloggers who are there without experience, but then they are still striving and doing their thing in the social media space and all of that.
In the line of duty as a journalist, were you on any day approached with anything material or monetary to compromise the details of any story you were doing? I'm talking bribery.
Yeah, well, okay, bribery. Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to say whether or not it was bribery or it is bribery. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you're talking about the brown envelope syndrome.
The
Yeah,
brown envelope
if I'm
aside, I'm
if I'm
talking
right.
about a direct
Okay.
invitation to take this and then trash the story or water down the facts, an attempted bribery situation.
I've had that. Yeah, I've had that situation, but once or twice. Yeah.
You want
And
to talk about
I'm
the
sorry,
details?
I wouldn't want to give details about it because it involves some certain people in power.
That's right.
Who,
That's right.
Of course.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your advocacy for your gender advocacy issues, what has been the most gripping incident you have grappled with?
Ooh, gender advocacy. Gender advocacy for me, it's something that I really hold dear because my passion for it stems from my own personal experiences and all of that. So it's easy for you to walk around these people, victims and survivors, get to interview them, sharing their stories or hearing their stories, having to tell their stories and all of that. It's easy to relate with them. And it's really sad because I really cannot pinpoint on a particular issue or one of the many work that I've done to say that this is one that touches me the most. Yeah, if I'm correct to answer the question that you asked. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint on that because I've come across several stories. I've heard a lot of issues and stories here and there that really is so touching that I cannot say, okay, this the variety of this is higher than the other, or the gravity of this is higher than the other. So
now let's do some house cleaning. Let's go into the media where you and I are from. Are women fairly represented enough in all spheres of the media?
I'm going to shake my head before I answer that question. No, no, and no again. Why? Because I know recently we had this conversation at work where during our meeting with my manager and my director, we had this conversation because we saw there was a report by GMMP that actually brought out figures and facts about the underrepresentation of women in the media, in all spheres of the media, from the leadership to them being news sources and all of that. Women are not, I really do not know how to put this. Why? Because if you look at the other side of the issue where we talk about leadership, okay, I'll speak from where I am at the moment. I reside in Abuja. I'm sure you know that already. Yeah. There's a lot of media houses here in Abuja, from broadcast, print, radio, and all of that. And it would interest you to know that women head most of these organizations. But then again, when it comes to news reportage, you don't hear women's voices. I've worked as a journalist. You approach a woman to say, oh, ma, I want to interview you on so issues, an issue that affects a woman. They wouldn't even want to speak to you. Some of them will tell, oh, I'm a civil servant. I'm not allowed to talk to the media. You get different excuses. Some will tell you, oh, I have to get to work. I'm sorry, and all of that. But then again, as a woman, I always like to look at it from both sides of the angle. We talk about women being underrepresented, but then we don't also look at the expectations, that the high expectations from women. Okay, let's paint a scenario. You're a woman, you're married, I'm a professional in my field, and I close from work by 5, my husband closes by 5. I'm expected to get home to cook for the family, to take care of the family and all of that. And then I get a call to say, oh, ma, you're meant to be on TV or on radio for a particular program, which is going to run from 7 or from 8 p.m. And then you're not considering my own domestic work that I'm meant to prioritize, and all of that. So I think there's high expectations for women on one angle, but then on the other angle, and to answer your question directly, I don't think the women are represented enough in the media, from the leadership structure down to them being news sources.
Attrition rate is very high in journalism. So many highly qualified. Attrition is very high in journalism.
Okay.
There are a lot of qualified, trained journalists that are abandoning the ship, going into corporate communications, public relations, and anything that will give them what looks like survivor. I don't know if I can classify you as one of them. What do you think from where you sit? What do you think is accounting for this high level of attrition?
You asked me a question earlier, and then I gave you an honest answer, and I'm sure now that I've mentioned it, your mind has gone back there. First of all, it's due to that general belief that journalism doesn't pay. And of course, you would agree with me also that one of the motivations for the work that we do as professionals in any field or any sector that we are in is definitely the returns and what we get from it. You cannot rule that out. It's something that we all need as humans and all. So I think that should be one for me. I think that should be one. And then there is the issue of journalism. How would I put this? There's the issue of journalism not being journalism. I like to define journalism from the angle of there's journalism, there's influential journalism. I don't know. Okay, probably we might get to that to have to speak to that. But then to answer your question, I think first of all, it has to do with the returns. And I think there's the issue of there's the health challenges associated with being a journalist. That's something that a lot of people look at. People consider journalism to be a very, very stressful job. Like, it's a very, very stressful job. You have to deal with deadlines, early mornings, late nights, and all of that. So I think that's something else that some people consider. And then there's the issue of people wanting to develop capacity in other areas. As a journalist, of course, you're meant to have an idea of different sectors, different things happening at the same time, and all of that. You're meant to have know a bit about everything, some sort of. And people want to like be able to build their capacity in like different areas and different sectors. So if you ask me, I think I would say those journalists who you believe or perceive have left, they probably are still journalists at heart, if you ask me.
How long has it been since you started from your TV days up until now? How many years are we talking about?
This is 1 year, and I think we're heading to 2 months now. Yeah. I left TV in 2022, I think February 2022. Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to the years you spent in television altogether, how many years are we looking at?
We're looking at 8 years. Yeah, going to 9 years now.
These 8 or almost 9 years, what represents your golden memories from the time you had a microphone with a camera on you up until this time they rushed to you with a microphone?
I'll say it's the power that I hold, or the realization that I have the power to speak for the voiceless, to speak for the marginalized groups, to speak for women and girls who do not have a platform to air their voices or to share their experiences. It's in understanding that I have the power to actually be able to do that for them, to bring their voices down to where it needs to be heard. I think that's what I would consider as something dear to me in my experience as a journalist.
If we should roll back the hands of time 12 years, are you still going to choose journalism if we give you another shot at life?
I am still going to choose journalism. I'll keep choosing journalism. Journalism is in my blood. I'm a journalist at heart, anywhere and every day. Yes.
The brown envelope, what's your take?
Yeah, my take on envelope. Well, I'd say it depends on where you're at in your career. and depends on the experience you had, or depends on how you got into journalism and what you familiarized with or what you were taught while you started journalism. Because I started journalism as just journalism, as I usually call it a press statement or press report journalist.
Okay.
Where you go for an event, an activity is ongoing, a press statement is being issued, and then in the press statement, you as a journalist, not like you perceive, you're sure that all of the of what was stated on the press statement, there's no fact list in it and all of that, but then you still go on TV and report what was on the press statement, just because, yes, of course, you've been given brand envelope, you have to report what you've been asked to report. So I think it depends on where you are in journalism and depends on your knowledge about journalism, in quotes.
How
Does that
many
answer your
months?
question?
It does. How many months, if you had the power as a gender advocate, how many months would you have pushed for maternity leaves to be extended to for women generally?
I'll give it 6 months. I'll give it 6 months. I'll give it 6 months.
And your reason?
I think, yeah, it's just like for the mother to be able to bond with her baby, obviously, so that women who would want to like go into exclusive breastfeeding options for their babies could have the time to actually be able to nurse their babies and ensure that they do the breastfeeding thing with all of their heart and like actually be able to give that to their babies. I'll give it 6 months. Yeah.
There are also calls for paternity leave. What do you make of it? Have you heard it ever?
I've heard it, of course. Like, yeah, we make jokes about it. I've read it on social media and all of that. Well, I don't know. I think primarily men are meant to be the providers, physically and like generally perceived and all of that. So I think I don't see the reason why you need paternity leave as long as your wife is going to be at home with your baby. You could be out there, working hard and fetching like the resources that your family needs to actually be able to do well for them. I mean, you're not the one who's gonna like be breastfeeding the baby all by yourself at home. You're gonna be a helpmate, of course, but then I feel you should be out there like working it out and providing for your family. Yeah.
There is an ongoing debate on PENSDOWN, this platform. Do you support calls or will you support calls for the licensing of journalists? Should journalists be licensed? Yes.
I would say yes. Why? Because there's been this infiltration of journalists who are not experienced. People just because journalism has that window or that room for anyone to just dabble into it, and it's easy for you to just go print a microphone logo and just have a microphone to say I'm a journalist. You can go to any event because of that prestige that people give to journalism and all of that. It's easy for people to just get into it and all of that. So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea if that is coming in as a policy or a law or is being brought in to actually be able to differentiate between experienced journalists from inexperienced ones who come in as the bad eggs to disrupt the work that journalists do.
All over Africa, politicians and politically exposed persons are setting up media houses. The political ownership of the media, are we loading a gun? Are we sitting on a time bomb? Is there a reason to be worried?
I think this has been there. It's not just that in. I think this is a trend that has been on for years or decades. If we're going to say like since the invention of journalism or since journalism started, I think it's been there, and I think it's just a way of persons in power or government officials, like you've said, to actually be able to control what the media puts out there. And it still boils down to government officials not wanting to be accountable themselves or to the citizens. And this is, yeah, I think that's it. I don't think it's something that should be encouraged, because it's going to further water down or further turn the work or the rework that journalists actually put into nothing, and that would not be good.
What triggered your interest in gender advocacy?
Gender advocacy for me, it's something dear to heart.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though I was in journalism, at some point in my broadcast days, I started reporting on women and girls. And then it all changed when I got selected for the Female Reporters Leadership Program under the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism fellowship. And that year, the fellowship was focused on gender-based violence reporting for the female fellows who were selected. And it opened my eyes to a lot of perspectives, or a lot of, even though I was reporting on women and children or women and girls, but then I never really saw that what I wanted to do was on gender inclusion or gender advocacy. So after that training, it exposed me to a lot of perspectives, a lot of ideas to say that, okay, this is something that it triggered a passion in me to say, yeah, this is something that I actually want to do, or something that I have a passion for. So that was where it all started. It awakened me. It awakened my consciousness. And what fuels my desire is my own personal experiences as a survivor of gender-based violence. So I think gender advocacy to me is something I really hold dear to heart.
Are we ever going to welcome you back into mainstream journalism?
Yes. And yes again.
When will that be?
I really cannot say. Of course, I could envisage, I could make my own plans. I could say in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time. But then again, life happens, of course. So I wouldn't want to say it is this time. I think when that time comes, I would know. And then, yeah, the opportunity will come for me to come back into broadcast. And yeah, I'm really open to that.
If a mentee or a sibling, a younger sibling, or somebody that looks up to you, walks up to you that they want to pursue journalism for a profession, will you give your blessing? Will you encourage them?
Very well, very well. I would, as long as you have a passion for it. Like I said earlier, journalism is something that you have to do with passion. It boils down to passion. Yeah, of course, people don't see journalism as a lucrative adventure or a lucrative job or work to venture into. But to me, if you are in the right line of journalism, if you're in the right line of influential journalism, I think it actually do pays. And yes, I'll give it a yes. I would be open to mentoring that person to actually pursue that.
What for you in the next 10 years, or where for you in the next 10 years, do you see yourself as a gender advocate?
In the next 10 years?
Yes.
I want to be, or I would be at a place where I have been able to reach my goal of having a safe space for young girls, for teenagers, for young girls who are victims and survivors of gender-based violence or sexual and gender-based violence, to be able to tell their stories. I want to be able to have them in this space. And I wouldn't want to say protect them, but then again, I want my advocacy to be able to give that safe space to young women to be able to share their stories freely, without shame, without condemnation, embracing their stories and their experiences with all of them. Yeah.
This has been PENSDOWN. Here we talk journalism journeys. Today we've had the company of Osaruonamen Ibizugbe. She is a media communications and gender inclusions expert. All the way from her base in Abuja, she joined us on PENSDOWN, where we always talk journalism journeys. This is about the only platform solely dedicated to journalists to tell us the behind-the-scenes stories. It never gets better anywhere. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next time with another colleague and their journalism journey. will still be the menu. Bye for now.